The conference room felt like a coffin, sleek mahogany walls, two bright fluorescent lights, and six pairs of eyes staring at me with rehearsed sympathy. I should have known something was wrong when Human Resources called this morning, asking me to bring my laptop and security badge to the fourth floor. London, you've been an invaluable asset to Mitchell and Brooks, said Director Stevens, his hands folded neatly on the polished table. But due to recent budget constraints, the rest of his words faded into white noise. 10 years of 60-hour weeks, sacrificed weekends, and missed family events, all reduced to corporate buzzwords and empty platitudes. My fingers dug into the leather armrest as I forced myself to maintain eye contact, to keep my face neutral, show no weakness. That's what got me here in the first place. Of course, we'll provide a generous severance package, Stevens continued, sliding a manila envelope across the table. Your contributions won't be forgotten. I wanted to laugh or scream. Instead, I smiled, gathered my things, and walked out with my head high. The elevator ride down felt endless. My phone buzzed, probably Mark wondering why I wasn't responding to his text about dinner with his parents tonight. Mark, my husband of 3 years, who still didn't understand why I worked so hard, who kept saying I needed to slow down and focus on family. The same Mark who never questioned how we afforded our downtown condo or his parents' monthly loans. In the lobby, Sophie was waiting with 2 coffee cups. My best friend had that look, the one that said she already knew. How bad? She asked, handing me a latte. Terminated. Effective immediately. The words tasted bitter. Budget cuts, apparently. Sophie's eyes narrowed. That's bullshit. You brought in their biggest accounts last quarter. Tell that to Stevens and his budget constraints. I took a sip of coffee, scalding my tongue. The pain felt good, grounding. Mark's gonna love this. His mother's been hinting I work too much anyway. Screw Elaine. That woman wouldn't know hard work if it bit her in her designer handbag. Sophie checked her phone. Wanna grab lunch? Process this properly? I shook my head. Can't. Family dinner tonight. Have to figure out how to break the news. You don't have to go. Not today. If I don't, Elaine will never let me hear the end of it. I forced another smile. Besides, Mark needs to know. Better to get it over with. Sophie hugged me tight. Call me later. Promise? I nodded, but something cold was settling in my stomach. A feeling I couldn't name yet. The same feeling I got when I noticed those strange bank statements in Mark's office last week, or when Thomas, my father-in-law, kept asking about my company's financial projections at Sunday brunch. Outside, the city hummed with afternoon traffic. My phone buzzed again. Mark, this time with a voicemail. Hey, babe, Mom's making your favorite tonight. Don't be late, okay? And wear that blue dress she got you for Christmas. You know how she gets about these things. The cold feeling crystallized into something harder. I deleted the message and opened my rideshare app. But instead of heading home to change, I entered the address for our local bank branch. Those strange statements kept nagging at me. If I was going to face Mark and his parents tonight, I needed answers. The car arrived and I slid into the back seat, my termination papers heavy in my bag. Something about this didn't add up. The timing was too perfect, too convenient, and I was going to find out why. Where to? The driver asked. First National Bank on 5th, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I need to check on some accounts. The bank manager's words echoed in my head as I stood on Elaine and Thomas's perfectly manicured lawn. I'm sorry, Mrs. Bennett, but I can't discuss your husband's private accounts without his authorization. Private accounts? Plural. The front door swung open before I could ring the bell. Elaine appeared, wearing her signature pearl necklace and disapproving smile. London, darling, that's not the dress I bought you. Lost track of time at work. The lie slipped out easily. No point mentioning the termination yet, not until I understood what was really going on. Well, come in. Mark's running late. Some emergency at the office. She ushered me into their oversized foyer, all marble and mirrors. Thomas is in his study reviewing investments. You know how he gets. I did know. Thomas hadn't stopped talking about investments since Mark and I got married, always asking about my company's projections, our financial planning, my retirement accounts. The dining room smelled of roast chicken and expensive wine. Elaine busied herself adjusting already perfect place settings. I hope you're not too disappointed about that promotion you mentioned. What was it, senior director? My fingers tightened around my water glass. I'd never mentioned any promotion. Actually, Mother, London, Thomas's voice boomed from the doorway. Just the person I wanted to see. He carried a stack of papers, reading glasses perched on his nose. Got a minute to look at something? Thomas, dinner's ready, Elaine protested. Won't take long. He gestured for me to follow him into his study. The room always reminded me of an old boys' club, leather chairs, cigars, and secrets. Have you considered diversifying your portfolio? He spread documents across his desk. Market's volatile these days. Smart money's moving into private equity. I prefer keeping things simple. And separate, I didn't add. Mark handles most of our investments. Ah, yes. Mark mentioned you're quite conservative with money. His tone suggested this wasn't a compliment. But with your position at Mitchell and Brooks, speaking of which, Elaine called from the doorway. Mark just texted. He's bringing Rebecca from the office. That new junior partner says they're working late on the merger. Something in her voice made me look up. A flash of something crossed her face before she smiled. I'll set another place. The room suddenly felt too small. Rebecca. The name triggered a memory. Mark's phone lighting up late at night. A text preview. Rebecca, missing you already? I dismissed it then. Trusted him. Thomas, I said carefully, those private equity investments you mentioned, are they through Mark's firm? Some. Others are private arrangements. He shuffled papers nervously. Family matters, you understand. Family matters, like hidden bank accounts and mysterious texts. Voices drifted from the foyer. Mark's familiar laugh, followed by a woman's softer response. I stood smoothing my skirt. Shall we join them? Rebecca was younger than I expected. Sleek blonde hair, expensive suit, designer heels. She looked perfectly at ease in this house of lies. London. Mark kissed my cheek, all charm and confidence. Sorry I'm late. Big breakthrough with the merger. His hand rested casually on Rebecca's lower back as he introduced us. Rebecca's been invaluable. Don't know what I'd do without her. I can imagine. I smiled, watching his hand drop. How long have you been working together? Oh, months now, Rebecca answered before Mark could. Mark's mentioned you so often, I feel like I know you already. Funny, I said, maintaining eye contact. He's never mentioned you. Tension crackled beneath the polite smiles. Elaine swooped in, directing everyone to their seats. I noticed she'd placed Rebecca next to Mark, across from me. Wine? Thomas offered, already pouring. It's that Bordeaux you love, London. The one from your wedding. Our wedding. When Mark had promised honesty and devotion. When I'd believed in fairy tales and happy endings. Actually, I said, standing suddenly, I should share some news. All eyes turned to me. I lost my job today. Budget cuts, apparently. The silence was deafening. Mark's face flickered with relief. Rebecca studied her wine glass. Thomas and Elaine exchanged glances. Oh, darling, Elaine finally said. Perhaps it's for the best. Now you can focus on what really matters. Yes, I agreed, watching their reactions carefully. What really matters. The game was changing, and so were the rules. 3 days after the dinner, I found the first transfer receipt. It was buried in Mark's desk drawer beneath old warranties and takeout menus. $50,000 moved from my personal savings to an account I'd never seen before. My signature, perfectly forged. The second receipt was worse. Another 70,000, dated 2 weeks before my termination. Going through my things? Mark's voice cut through the silence. He stood in the doorway, tie loosened, Rebecca's lipstick barely visible on his collar. Funny, I held up the receipts. I was about to ask if you've been going through mine. He didn't flinch, didn't even try to deny it. We needed the money, Dad's investments. We're failing, I know. The question is, how long have you been planning this? Planning what? My firing. The timing's too perfect, isn't it? Right after you drained my accounts. Mark crossed the room, poured himself a whiskey. His hands were steady, too steady. You're being paranoid. Budget cuts happen. To their top performer? Right after suspicious transfers? After your father suddenly gets interested in my retirement accounts? London. Did Rebecca help? Is that why she was really at dinner? Something flickered in his eyes. Fear? Anger? Leave her out of this. Like you left me out of stealing my money? He slammed the glass down. It wasn't stealing. It was protecting our family. Dad needed help. Your family, I corrected, and my money. What's mine is yours. Isn't that what marriage is? His smile turned cruel. Besides, who do you think the police will believe? The unstable woman who just lost her job? Or the respected financial advisor trying to help his family? The pieces clicked into place. The late nights, the secret phone calls. Rebecca, they'd planned it all. How much? My voice was ice. How much did you take? Enough? He moved closer, towering over me. And there's nothing you can do about it. No one will believe you, not without proof. I thought of the bank manager's face when I'd asked about Mark's accounts, the way Thomas shuffled those papers, Elaine's satisfied smile when I announced losing my job. You're right, I said quietly. I can't prove anything, yet. His confidence wavered. What does that mean? It means I'm going to find out exactly what you and your family have been doing. Every account, every transfer, every lie. You're threatening me? No, Mark, I'm promising you. I stepped around him, heading for the door. Oh, and tell Rebecca she missed a spot. I touched my neck where his collar showed her lipstick. She should be more careful. Evidence has a way of surfacing. Where are you going? To see Sophie. I need a place to stay while my unstable mind processes everything. His laugh followed me down the hall. You've got nothing, London. No job, no money, no proof. Face it, you lost. I paused at the front door, thinking of the USB drive in my pocket, the one I'd found hidden in his desk, filled with financial records I'd spent all afternoon copying. Maybe, but you taught me something important, Mark. What's that? Family takes care of its own, I smiled, watching his expression shift. And payback's a bitch. The door closed behind me with a satisfying click. In my car, I pulled out my phone and dialed Sophie. Hey, she answered on the first ring. You okay? Remember that favor you mentioned? The one about your brother in forensic accounting? Yeah? I need his help, and yours. I started the engine, watching our bedroom light flick on. Mark's silhouette appeared, phone in hand, probably calling Daddy dearest. How do you feel about taking down a family of thieves? Sophie's smile was audible. I thought you'd never ask. Come over, we've got work to do. As I drove away, my phone lit up with messages. Mark, Elaine, Thomas, all demanding answers, making threats. I ignored them all. They wanted to play games with my life? Fine, but they were about to learn that some games have consequences, and I was just getting started. The city lights blurred as I accelerated, leaving behind the house of lies I'd called home. Ahead, Sophie's apartment beckoned, a war room where we'd plan our next moves. They thought they'd broken me, but they'd only succeeded in one thing. They'd created their worst nightmare. Sophie's brother Alex spread the financial documents across his kitchen table, his forensic accountant's eyes scanning each page methodically. 3 empty coffee cups testified to our late-night investigation. They're good, he muttered, circling numbers, really good, but they made one mistake. Just one? Sophie handed him another coffee. They got greedy. He tapped a series of transactions. See these transfers? They're structured to avoid detection, but there's a pattern. Every month, right after your paycheck cleared. My phone buzzed. Elaine's name flashed on screen. The 10th call today. I declined it, but her text came through anyway. Thomas is in the hospital. Heart attack. Please come. Ignore it, Sophie said, reading over my shoulder. It's probably another trick. But my hands shook as I set the phone down. Despite everything, 3 years of family dinners and holiday memories didn't just vanish. Wait, Alex said suddenly. Who's Rebecca Carlton? The name hit like a punch. Mark's colleague. Why? He pulled up a document. Because she's been receiving regular payments from an offshore account linked to Thomas, starting exactly 1 month before your termination. The pieces clicked together with nauseating clarity. Rebecca wasn't just Mark's affair partner. She was their inside connection at Mitchell and Brooks. They paid her to get me fired, I whispered. Sophie cursed. That's why she was at dinner. They were flaunting it. My phone buzzed again. Thomas in the hospital. The perfect trap to reel me back in. I need air, I managed, heading for Alex's balcony. The city sprawled below, lights twinkling like the diamonds on my wedding ring, the ring I still hadn't taken off. The sliding door opened behind me. London? Sophie's voice was gentle. Alex found something else. I turned. Her expression made my stomach drop. They're trying to declare you mentally unstable, she said. Mark filed papers yesterday. Claims you're having a breakdown, making paranoid accusations. He's seeking control of all your assets. The world tilted sideways. They weren't just stealing my money. They were trying to steal my sanity, my identity, my future. My phone lit up again. This time, a text from Rebecca. We need to talk, alone, about what really happened. Don't, Sophie warned. It's obviously a setup. But something in Rebecca's message felt different. Desperate. What if it's not? I showed Sophie the screen. What if she's realizing she's in too deep? Or what if they're using her to trap you? Get you somewhere alone, make you look unstable. The balcony door slid open again. Alex emerged with more papers. Found their weakness, he announced. Thomas's investment firm. It's a house of cards. One wrong move and everything collapses. Define wrong move, I said. Anonymous tip to the SEC about certain irregular transactions, proof of coercion and corporate terminations, evidence of identity theft. He smiled grimly. Take your pick. My phone buzzed one final time. A photo from Mark. Thomas in a hospital bed, oxygen mask on his face. The message below it. Is this what you wanted? I stared at the image, remembering every manipulation, every lie, every moment they'd used my compassion against me. They thought they could break me by making me doubt myself. Instead, they taught me how to break them. Alex, I said, turning from the city lights, how quickly can you get that evidence to the SEC? Tonight, if needed. Do it. I pulled off my wedding ring, set it on the balcony rail. And Sophie, call that reporter friend of yours, the one who specializes in financial fraud exposés. What about Rebecca's message? Sophie asked. I picked up my phone, typed a response. Tomorrow, noon, public place of my choosing. You're really going to meet her? Yes. I watched my ring glint one last time in the cityscape before pocketing it. Because either she's ready to turn on them or she's part of their trap. Either way. Either way what? I smiled, feeling the last traces of doubt fall away. Either way, I'm done being their victim. Time to show them what a real breakdown looks like. The city hummed below us, indifferent to the war I was about to unleash. Somewhere in a hospital room, Thomas played his part in their latest manipulation. Somewhere else, Mark and Elaine waited for their schemes to bear fruit. They had no idea what was coming. Rebecca chose the hotel lobby, neutral ground, she'd said. I arrived early, positioning myself where I could see all entrances. Sophie sat at the bar, pretending to read while watching my back. Rebecca looked different, without Mark's shadow looming over her. Smaller, her designer outfit couldn't hide the tremor in her hands as she sat across from me. "They'll destroy you," she said without preamble. "They've done it before." Before? Mark was married before. Did you know that? She pulled out her phone, showed me a photo. A woman, maybe my age, smiling. Sarah Henderson, now Sarah Mills again. After they finished with her, she lost everything, her job, her savings, even custody of her dog. My throat tightened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm next," her voice cracked. "Thomas's investment scheme is failing. They need a scapegoat, and Mark suggested, you." The pieces clicked. "That's why you reached out." She nodded, glancing nervously around the lobby. "I have proof, documents, recordings, but I need protection. Or this is another trap." I leaned forward. "How do I know they didn't send you?" "Check your phone." A new email appeared, dozens of audio files and documents. "Mark discussing the plan to get you fired," Rebecca explained. "Thomas detailing the investment fraud. Elaine coordinating with their lawyer about having you declared unstable." My hands shook as I scrolled through the evidence. It was all there, every lie, every manipulation, every calculated move. "Why now?" I asked. "Because," Rebecca's eyes widened, focusing on something behind me. "Oh, God." I turned. Mark stood by the entrance, his face a mask of cold fury. Thomas flanked him, looking remarkably healthy for someone who just had a heart attack. "London." Mark's voice carried across the lobby. "Having a nice chat?" Rebecca grabbed her purse, standing. "I have to go." "Stay," I said quietly. "Sophie's at the bar. She'll make sure you get out safely." Mark approached our table, Thomas close behind. "Sweetheart, everyone's worried about you. The doctors think that I'm unstable." I pulled out my phone, played one of Rebecca's recordings. Mark's voice filled the air. "Once we get control of her assets, we can transfer everything. She'll be too discredited to fight back." The color drained from his face. "Interesting timing for your father's heart attack," I continued, "right when I was getting close to the truth." Thomas stepped forward. "You're making a scene." "No, I'm making a point." I stood, matching their height. "The SEC received some very interesting documents this morning. Anonymous tip." "You're bluffing," Mark snapped. "Check your phone." His screen lit up with breaking news. "Major investment firm under investigation for fraud." Thomas swayed, grabbing a chair for support. "You can't prove anything," he wheezed. "Actually, she can." Rebecca's voice was steady now. "I kept everything." Mark's charm evaporated. "You stupid bitch." "Careful." Sophie appeared beside us, phone recording. "That won't look good in court." The lobby had grown quiet, other guests watching the drama unfold. Mark's carefully constructed facade cracked. "London, please." He tried one last time. "We can fix this. We're family." "Family?" I laughed. "Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't gaslight and manipulate and destroy." I pulled out my wedding ring, set it on the table. "But you taught me something valuable." "What's that?" Thomas demanded. "That revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about revealing who they truly are." I gathered my things, nodded to Sophie and Rebecca. "The SEC will be in touch. Oh, and Mark, Sarah Henderson says hello." We left them standing in the lobby, their empire crumbling around them. Outside, Rebecca exhaled shakily. "What happens now?" "Now," Sophie said, "we get you somewhere safe. My brother's lawyer is waiting." I watched them leave, feeling strangely hollow, the satisfaction of revenge mixed with sadness for what could have been. My phone buzzed. Elaine, probably hearing the news. I declined the call, deleted her number, then Mark's, then Thomas's. The city stretched before me, full of possibilities and dangers. I'd learned to be both predator and prey, to recognize the masks people wear. But as I walked away from the hotel, I wondered, in becoming strong enough to break them, what had I become myself? The answer would have to wait. For now, there was work to do, and a new life to build from the ashes of their lies. The charity gala was Elaine's pride and joy, her annual showcase of wealth and influence. I watched from across the ballroom as she worked the crowd, her pearls gleaming under crystal chandeliers. She hadn't noticed me yet. None of them had. Ready? Sophie whispered beside me, clutching a manila envelope. No, I smoothed my black dress, the one Mark had always hated. But it's too late to stop now. The SEC investigation had gone public that morning. Thomas's firm was hemorrhaging clients, their stock in free fall. But here they were, pretending nothing was wrong, hosting their perfect party. Mark stood by the bar, Rebecca notably absent. He'd already replaced her with someone new, a redhead in blue silk who laughed too loudly at his jokes. Some things never changed. London. Thomas's voice froze me mid-step. You have nerve showing up here. I turned. He looked older, haunted. Good. Wouldn't miss it, I said. After all, family traditions matter. Isn't that what you always said? His face darkened. Security will escort you out. Before or after I share these, Sophie handed me the envelope. Proof of every transaction, every lie, every victim before me, including Sarah Henderson. You're making a mistake. His voice shook. Mark still loves you. We can fix this. Like you fixed Sarah? Elaine appeared, her society smile cracking. What's she doing here? Returning a favor? I moved toward the microphone stand where the band was setting up. Thomas grabbed my arm. Don't, I wrenched free. Touch me again, and assault charges joined the fraud allegations. The room blurred as I approached the stage. Faces turned, whispers spread. Mark started pushing through the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, my voice carried across the suddenly quiet room. I'd like to propose a toast. Security guards hesitated at the doors, unsure whether to intervene. Mark reached the stage just as I continued. To the Bennett family, to Thomas's investment genius. I held up my phone, playing one of Rebecca's recordings. Thomas's voice filled the room. Once we drain her accounts, she'll have nothing left to fight with. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elaine swayed, clutching her pearls. To Elaine's perfect family image. Another recording. Mark, just get rid of her like you did Sarah. We need those assets. Mark lunged for the microphone. I stepped back, letting him stumble. And to my loving husband. I met his eyes. Who orchestrated my firing, stole my savings, and planned to have me declared mentally unstable, all while sleeping with Rebecca, who, by the way, kept receipts. She's lying, Mark shouted. She's unstable, delusional. The SEC disagrees. I projected the investigation headlines onto the wall behind me, as do your other victims. Sarah sends her regards, by the way. She's outside with the press. Chaos erupted. Guests fled, phones recording everything. Thomas collapsed into a chair. Elaine's mask finally shattered. You ungrateful bitch, she hissed. After everything we gave you. Gave me? I laughed. You stole everything from me. My career, my money, my trust. But you forgot something crucial. What's that? Mark demanded. You taught me too well. I nodded to Sophie, who was live streaming everything. I learned from the best how to destroy someone completely. Security finally reached us, but it wasn't me they surrounded. It was Thomas, as federal agents entered the ballroom. Thomas Bennett? An agent approached. We have some questions about certain financial irregularities. The last thing I saw before leaving was Mark's face. Not angry now, but afraid. Really afraid. Outside, reporters swarmed. Sarah Henderson stood among them, her expression grim but satisfied. Feel better? She asked as I passed. No, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. But it's done. Sophie guided me to her car. Behind us, the Gala imploded, sirens wailing, cameras flashing. Everything they'd built, everything they'd stolen, crumbling in one night. London? Sophie touched my arm. You okay? I wasn't. The victory felt hollow, tasting of ash and regret. I'd become what I hated, someone who destroyed lives for satisfaction. But as police led Thomas away in handcuffs, as Elaine's perfectly crafted world shattered, as Mark's true nature was exposed to all, I realized something. Sometimes becoming the monster was the only way to slay them. The police station's interview room felt smaller at midnight. Rebecca sat across from me, her designer clothes wrinkled, mascara smeared, 2 cups of cold coffee between us, untouched. Mark's been arrested, she said. Thomas, too. I know. I'd watched the news footage. Thomas in handcuffs, Mark being led from his office. That's not why you called. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking. There's something you need to see. Something worse. A video played, Elaine in their study arguing with Mark. We should have done it like with Sarah, she hissed. The car accident worked perfectly then. My blood froze. When was this? Last week, after the gala. Rebecca's voice cracked. They were planning something for you, something permanent. The door opened. Sophie entered with her brother Alex carrying files. We found the insurance policies, Alex said. Multiple ones, all on London, recently updated. Like Sarah's? I asked Rebecca. She nodded. Except bigger, much bigger. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. The voice message played. London, it's Sarah Henderson. They're releasing Elaine on bail. She's not stable. Be careful. The pieces clicked together like a twisted puzzle. Where's Elaine now? That's why I called. Rebecca showed me another text. She wants to meet. Says she can prove Mark forced her into everything. Wants to make things right. It's a trap, Sophie warned. Obviously. I stood gathering my things. Where and when? London, no, where? Rebecca hesitated. The riverfront, your old spot, where you and Mark got engaged. Of course, the perfect setting for her final manipulation. I'm calling the police. Sophie reached for her phone. No, I checked my watch. She'll run, or worse, she'll hurt someone else. Sarah, Rebecca, you. Then I'm coming with you. Both of us, Rebecca added. I shook my head. She needs to think I'm alone, desperate, but I need you to do something else. The riverfront was deserted at this hour. Elaine stood by the railing, still wearing her pearls, looking almost fragile in the moonlight. I knew you'd come, she said without turning. You always were predictable. Like Sarah's accident? She stiffened. You don't understand. We had to protect the family. By killing her? Planning to kill me? You were destroying everything. She spun, mask finally dropping. Our reputation, our legacy? Your lies, I corrected. Your crimes. They'll never prove anything. Not about Sarah, not about you. She stepped closer. We can still fix this. Together. Like family. Family? I laughed. Is that what you told Sarah before her brakes failed? A flash of metal in her hand, a small revolver. You're just like her, too stubborn to understand. No, Elaine, I understand perfectly. I held up my phone, and so will the police. Her eyes widened as sirens wailed in the distance. Rebecca and Sophie emerged from the shadows, phones recording everything. You really are predictable, I said softly. She raised the gun. You've ruined everything. No, you did that yourself. Every lie, every scheme, every murder attempt. I stepped forward. But you taught me something valuable. What's that? Her hand trembled. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. Police cars surrounded us, lights flashing. It's letting them destroy themselves. The gun clattered to the ground as officers swarmed in. Elaine's perfect facade crumbled completely as they led her away. London? Rebecca touched my arm. There's something else you should know about Mark. But I was already walking away, leaving the riverfront and its ghosts behind. Some truths could wait until morning. Some wounds needed time to heal. Behind me, Elaine's voice rose in hysteria, echoing across the water, the sound of a dynasty crumbling, of justice finally served. Sarah Henderson would sleep better tonight. So would I. But as Sophie drove me home, I wondered, in becoming strong enough to survive them, had I become something else entirely? And more importantly, could I live with what I'd become? The city lights blurred, offering no answers, only the promise of tomorrow and the echo of consequences yet to come. The courthouse steps felt colder in autumn. I watched Mark being led away in handcuffs, his expensive suit replaced by prison orange. He didn't look back. Neither did I. 15 years, Sophie whispered beside me, plus restitution. Thomas had gotten 20. Elaine faced separate charges for Sarah's death. The perfect family, undone by their own greed. A woman approached, mid-20s, clutching a folder. Miss Bennett, I'm Jennifer Chin. My parents lost everything to Thomas's firm. I recognized the name from the victim list. I'm sorry. Don't be. They're rebuilding. She hesitated. Actually, I need your help. There's another investment group targeting vulnerable families, using the same tactics. My chest tightened, the familiar pull of righteous anger, the temptation to fight back, to become the weapon I'd forged myself into. I have evidence, Jennifer continued. Like you did, I thought maybe. London, Sophie warned. You promised yourself? I know. I studied Jennifer's desperate expression, seeing my own reflection from months ago. Send the evidence to this lawyer. I wrote down Alex's contact. He specializes in financial fraud. But fighting monsters by becoming one? I shook my head. It costs too much. Jennifer's shoulders slumped. How do you just walk away? You don't? I touched the scar on my wrist, a souvenir from Elaine's final attack. You learn to carry it differently. Rebecca emerged from the courthouse, her testimony complete. Our eyes met briefly. She nodded once, acknowledgement, maybe gratitude, before disappearing into a waiting car. The press wants statements, Sophie said. Let them wait. I needed one more moment, one last look at the courthouse where justice had finally been served. Sarah Henderson appeared at my side, her presence steady. Worth it? Ask me tomorrow. I managed a small smile. How's the dog? Happy, safe. She touched my arm. Like us. My phone buzzed. A job offer from a rival firm. They'd been circling since the scandal broke, impressed by how I'd exposed the fraud, wanting that same ruthless efficiency for themselves. I declined the call. You're not taking it? Sophie asked. No, the autumn wind carried the scent of change. I'm starting my own consulting firm, helping people protect themselves from predators like Mark. Using the skills they taught you against them? Sarah's laugh held no bitterness. Perfect karma. Reporters swarmed the steps, shouting questions. I stepped forward, ready to give them their soundbite, but stopped. Actually, I turned to Jennifer. Why don't you tell them your story? About your parents, about what these crimes really cost? She straightened, clutching her folder tighter. You sure? Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. I echoed my words to Elaine that night by the river. It's making sure they can never hurt anyone else. Jennifer nodded, understanding. As she approached the microphones, I slipped away with Sophie and Sarah. Dinner? Sophie suggested. That new place on 5th? Can't. I checked my watch. Meeting someone. They followed my gaze to a nearby cafe where an elderly couple sat, looking lost. More victims of Thomas's schemes, still piecing their lives back together. Need backup? Sarah offered. I shook my head. Some battles you fight alone. Some you help others fight for themselves. They understood. We'd all learned that lesson differently. The cafe door chimed as I entered. The couple looked up, hope and hesitation warring in their eyes. They had my mother's age, my father's gentle demeanor. In another life, they could have been family. Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez? I sat down, placing my briefcase on the table. I heard you have a story to tell. Outside, autumn leaves scattered across the courthouse steps. Somewhere, Mark faced his first night of many behind bars. Elaine prepared for trial. Thomas counted his losses. Rebecca built a new life. Jennifer told her truth to the cameras. And I listened to another tale of betrayal, not to fuel revenge, but to forge something stronger. Protection for those who needed it most. The monsters had taught me well. Now I would teach others how to survive them.